Hey guys, welcome back to Trekyards. I'm Captain Foley.
I'm Connor Kungs.
And I'm Rick Sternbach.
And we are going to be talking to Rick today about an unused concept. This is our concept show where we talk about little sketches that the designers have done that maybe went nowhere or that maybe were almost completed and look fantastic anyway, and just get their thought process behind that design. So what are we doing today, Samuel?
So you could say they went nowhere, did nothing, but still part of the show.
Exactly.
Thank you. So today we look at the Manta Shuttle, which became the Aero Shuttle, which was also never exactly seen, but is there. And this is a fun design, and basically we're going to throw it over to Rick now just to say, tell us the history of this ship, and then we'll discuss some possibilities and such, because it's a cool design. It's cool.
Yeah, well, if you look at the history of Starfleet ships with things like the Captain's Yacht, okay, and Andy Probert did the yacht on the underside of the Enterprise D, okay, which we also never got to use, although there was some talk during the run of the show, maybe we could have built an interior set for it. The Captain's Yacht became something of a very special addition to the main hull. When it came time to design Voyager, that whole idea of adding a specialized ship, a sub-ship, small spacecraft, that came into the Voyager process somewhere along the way. I really wasn't thinking about it at the very beginning, but as the Voyager hull developed, there was this big blank spot, on the bottom of the ship, and I figured, okay, let's come up with something that they might be able to build later.
So was this actually something that was a producer, they said, let's make sure it's a captain's yacht, or did you, the designer, say, this ship needs a captain's yacht, I'm overriding, it's in the design, and they just let you do it?
No, I mean, most of my sketches, did not come with producer directives. A lot of what the producers said was in reaction to sketches. Either the size, the general configuration of the ship. I would do a series of drawings and would get word back, or even discussions, with people like Rick Berman or Michael Piller or Jerry Taylor, when it came to Voyager, what they saw in a sketch and maybe how they would like it, changed a little bit. And when it came to things like the Manta, really was a standalone shape that I fleshed out in the drawing, and worked it into the bottom of the hull. And nobody really said anything about it, and it made its way all the way through the Voyager blueprints, got built into the 5-foot miniature, and it ended up on screen, although no one ever saw it in use.
Well, the one that was kind of on screen that we've talked about before in another episode was the Aero Shuttle, which is a little bit different design than the Manta.
Yeah, but not that different. I mean, there's a definite lineage.
Yeah. Now, I got to ask first, the chicken or the egg thing, which came first, the name Manta or the shape? And you just named it Manta based on the shape that you designed.
Oh, I would, I loved animal imagery, especially with Starfleet ships, where you would have this sort of very fluid, very smooth design, and I thought of a Manta or a Stingray, and you harden up the lines on an animal shape, and you can very easily get a ship.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean that is obviously goes with the name, but it's a very clearly animalistic sort of shape. That's its big thing, but.
It's got wings and
yeah, but it's actually, I mean, that's quite a radical departure from, say, the Galaxy, which was obviously your previous thing, or say Ambassador. I mean, going into an animal shape, isn't that? Were you trying to set a new precedent of we can use animal shapes, or were you thinking because it's a secondary craft, we can be a bit different with it? Because this is an undone concept, animal shapes as exclusively this.
Yeah, well, I mean, the fact that I named it Manta on the drawing, okay, yes, that will trigger something in your head, and you'll think of it as sort of an animal shape. If I didn't put the label Manta on there, it would probably just look like an aerodynamic, sort of aerodynamic shuttlecraft type shape. But it's got the little front, the little front pieces, which you can find on a Manta. So I can sometimes start with a thought of an animal that is familiar, or simply just take, more naturalistic shapes and harden them up a bit. You harden them up one way for Starfleet, you harden them up a slightly different way for, Klingon or Romulan or Cardassian or whatever. Look at the Romulan bird of prey. Okay, it's got a bird painted right on it. So
looking at the design, it speaks to me without some of the Federation embellishment. It looks very Cardassian almost. Is that one of the reasons that the design was perhaps changed a little bit to the Aero Shuttle, or why did you go from this beautiful design to the Aero Shuttle, which is fine too? The Aero Shuttle is beautiful too, but
I wasn't thinking Cardassian. If you look at the details on the Manta, they're very Starfleet. When it came time to actually plot the shape on the bottom of Voyager's forward hull, I simply drew an evolved winged shape that suggested that it had nacelles or some sort of an embedded, warp system, and just went from there.
So I've just pulled up the Aero Shuttle, and the biggest difference really is that in your concept, it goes one way around. The Aero Shuttle goes the other way around. I believe Rob took the because did you design the Aero Shuttle, or was that partially a CG team thing where they fleshed it out as well? So I can't remember which story that was.
With the Aero Shuttle, I designed what you see on Voyager. I designed the bottom of it. What the drawings that I sent over to Foundation included the Manta, saying, look, maybe if we could sort of kind of borrow the runabout interior set, maybe we could adapt, the runabout cockpit as part of the Aero Shuttle. I just let them do what they did best with the top of it. Okay, the part that we never got to see, until the test render.
I'm looking at the Aero Shuttle. Seems smaller. Your version, so you've got the clear runabout-esque top bit, and there is some space behind. Did you conceive this ship to have more than one deck, or very much just be a simple cabin with more? The ship was like it was bringing technology to the field, to, if you need it, rather than space and escaping a situation. It's got the inbuilt warp engines, it's got the functions, but not the space to do more. Was
it designed to be an auxiliary craft, or just basically a runabout or a shuttle or a captain's yacht? I mean, there's different functions for each of those, and since the Intrepid's more of a specialist craft and not like a big luxury liner like the D, was this meant to be more of an auxiliary ship designed for specific missions?
If you look at the Manta, it very definitely has that runabout type forward section, forward cockpit area. To me, it would be very much runabout like. Exactly what its functions would have been, I had no idea at the time.
But it's 2017, Rick. We're asking now.
It could very well have functioned like a captain's yacht, for very special, off-ship operations. The captain could go down and deal with, planetary leaders and whatnot.
I think as Doug Drexler would say, whatever the writers needed is what it would do.
Yeah, exactly. I drew the shape. If I want to build, a model of the Voyager, and really think about what the Aero Shuttle could have done. I suspect it would have, to me, it would have been more of a captain's yacht kind of a thing. Very special operations outside of what you would normally do with shuttlecraft.
I mean, the sizing, this is vastly larger than any of the other shuttles. I mean, until the Delta Flyer comes along, I mean, they only have Type 6 and Type 9, 8, 9, I don't know. But I guess I want to go back to the very start of the questions. I mean, what made you go for an integrated warp nacelle wing configuration? Because that, again, is a radical departure from having standalone nacelles. That's certainly an advancement, but then again, that's not necessarily reflected in future designs. But it is, in concept, a pushing forward. So what was the thought process behind that?
If you first accept that it has parts that look like wings, okay, then you get the sense of, okay, maybe this thing can do atmospheric operations, and if you blend in some warp nacelles, then yes, maybe this thing can go warp 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, maybe since we already had the runabout. The runabout had, I think, warp 5 or warp 6 capability. So it's not that much of a stretch to think of the Manta or the Aero Shuttle as having something similar. Okay, because the Manta really was about maybe the same length as the runabout. Okay, and could have two nacelles, do warp flight. I don't recall if the captain's yacht on the Galaxy class could go warp or not. I suspect it was more of a impulse only.
Yeah, it had warp sustainers, so if it was launched in warp, it could slowly coast down to impulse speed. So.
Yeah. Look at the sketches that I did of Voyager early on. It's like a runabout on steroids. Okay, so I had runabout on the brain because at the time Voyager was in development. I personally didn't have a whole lot of mental files about smaller ships. Mm-hmm. Okay, so I started grabbing from what I knew, and what I knew was the runabout. Yeah. So you can see that in the early Voyager sketches, and you can see that in the Manta.
Well, that brings in an interesting question. I mean, one big thing, especially about that part of the Star Trek timeline, you've got the Galaxy, Nebula, interchangeable parts. You've got, other possible examples. A lot of it was very much shared that era, and it certainly, having plug and play is useful, although then the styles diverged a bit. Do you think that the cockpit, what looks to be the cockpit of the Manta Ray, do you think that's literally just, or I said just, but is that a plug and play part of a runabout? Or, earlier on in the runabout building process, they would then make a half version, pull that out, and then just plug it straight into this for the Intrepid class? Or do you think looks similar?
Not with the exterior. If they were, if they had been able to borrow the runabout interior sets, okay, then yes, we could have adapted, the shapes that you see, like the windows. Okay, we could have adapted those for the exterior. When I was working on the runabout drawings, okay, the set designers already had the interior like 90% done. So I was locked in to the shape of the windows, the locations of the side windows, the location of the entry hatch. So I had to make all that work with the runabout exterior. Okay. Now with something like the Manta, had we been able to borrow DS9's assets and make use of the maybe the cockpit set, maybe part of the center section, then I would have designed something around the outside of that set. The inside and the outside were two separate animals, but they had common features, like the windows and the hatches.
So then, if this was going to be if this was with a Delta Flyer, say, every third episode was going to be used, and they built a new internal set to be really original, how different would you have thought if you were fully designing, you had the budget? How different would you have made functionally the interior space?
Let's say that we had designed the Aero Shuttle interior from scratch. I don't think the interior would necessarily have anything to do with what I drew for the bottom, except in the general dimensions. Okay. And yeah, I mean, we could have changed the cockpit windows. We could have changed the entry hardware on top, and then whoever would do the CG model would have followed a new set of sketches.
Well, I guess then in your mind for this, where you understand the Starfleet technology to evolve, do you think so the secondary auxiliary craft of an Intrepid class, do you think it would have had still a roughly runabout, some pilot, some secondary, would it have had more of a, maybe USS Defiant style bridge, an actual bridge module with, a center seat and people? Is it that big a craft, do you think? Or
No. I don't think it would have had a bridge per se. I think it would be smaller than the Defiant bridge deck.
Yeah, I was exaggerating. It wouldn't be able to be that big, but I mean, like I saw a bridge module rather than a cockpit with a pilot sort of thing. Or would you have gone much more the shuttle route with a cockpit?
My thinking for the exterior probably would have still borrowed from the runabout. The fact that the bottom was already designed, okay, and it had a very specific width and length and plan form. The set designers really, would have to stick with some of those dimensions, and flesh out the top of it.
Now, I gotta ask. I mean, we're gonna be doing an episode on the early Voyager design later with you, but I think maybe you had just watched a documentary on like sea life, because the original Voyager one had like a fin on the top, so like a shark, and then we got the Manta. Now I gotta ask, when you were designing this, what kind of were you thinking about weapons and placements at all? Like, is that back part a stinger, like on a manta ray? Is it like a photon torpedo launcher or a phaser lance? Anything special weapons-wise on this thing?
Well, there were phaser emitters. The standard, like almost like the Type 10 strips that are on the Galaxy class. Okay. Now, a lot of what I did on Voyager really ended up being sort of the Enterprise D, just in a new form. Okay, a lot of the shapes are almost exactly the same. With things like the Manta, additional weapons or additional scientific instruments or sensors or whatever could have been placed, all around that thing. The fact that on the Manta, I drew stock standard, phaser strips, probably means that I wasn't thinking about anything super special, just bits that were stylistically familiar, so that you couldn't, mistake it for something else.
Well, I think we need a micro torpedo launcher in the tail. I think that'd be cool to be a stinger.
Yeah. Why not?
That'd be cool. So quick fire questions, Rick. Should be easy answers, hopefully. First, either side of that main canopy cockpit, just behind, there are these two technological pieces. What do you think they are? The two bits that come out of the middle bit.
Now, just like on the runabout, those were for the heated air ramjets when the impulse system is used in an atmosphere. Okay, you draw in the local atmosphere, you heat it up within the little microfusion combustors, and use that for propulsion. Okay, when you're outside the atmosphere, okay, those are no longer working. Okay, you simply have the impulse field drive. So there.
So they're very much like a turbine engine on a fighter jet. They suck in air, superheat it, and you got an afterburner kind of effect.
Yeah, pretty much.
You guys are amazing. Second question. Actually, I thought of another one. But second question: escape pods, yay or nay? Do you think? Especially given the Delta Flyer has escape pods. Yeah. What do you think?
Nah. Yeah. I mean, look at the runabout. The runabout doesn't have any, additional escape pods.
But this is drastically wider though. A lot more surface area. And if you put some on the bottom line, it's got a lot more volume. If it's not internal.
The Delta Flyer had those little torpedo-shaped pods. I could see maybe having a couple of those,
but your gut says
those
no.
would be like, huh?
But your gut says no.
Yeah, maybe not. Maybe not. There's a lot of this sometimes comes down to budget. We did not see the captain's yacht on the Enterprise D. But that was morphed into the executive shuttle that Picard took. Okay, so a lot of things go on behind the scenes that we in the art department sometimes don't hear about for a little bit, and it really does come down to, okay, guys, we can't afford to build this entire new thing. Especially if we're not going to be using it that much.
And yet the team still built the CG Aero Shuttle other concept. So it was there, and they built the sequence. Anyway, so two more little questions, Rick. I assume this ship can land on a planet surface pretty happily and easily?
Yeah, it's got a set of 3 landing pads. So those extend, and, just like on the Delta Flyer, Flyer's got landing feet, so this thing would have also.
And that's a wonderful transition to my last question. Out of your 2 babies here, I'm sorry to say, Rick, but who would you say would outmatch it, the Delta Flyer or this in, say, maneuverability in terms of raw speed? What would your gut say out of these 2 ships, Rick? Gut reaction.
I think the Flyer would probably have been a little zippier.
Good word.
Yeah.
I love it. But probably slower at max speed though, because this has got larger engines, probably. Yeah.
Well, I think we'll call that an episode. But before we go, we got to ask the question we always ask you, Rick, and I know you hate it, but
you love to
what's your most favorite and least favorite thing about the Manta design, and do you think it's superior to the Aero Shuttle?
Wow,
I had to throw that last part in to make it unique.
No, well, I like the basic plan form of the Manta. I really love what the Aero Shuttle evolved into. If I had a chance to fly on the Aero Shuttle, I'd be right there in the cockpit.
And what's your least favorite thing? Like, what would you change about this design if they wanted to revisit it?
Oh, if I wanted to change the Manta, I might go back and add change a few of those straight lines into slight curves. Bring it more in line with the Voyager hull, and just kind of soften it up a little bitty bit.
Good answer.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, thank you for joining us for this episode, Rick. It was awesome hearing about the Manta, this unused concept, which looks fully fleshed out in this picture.
Yeah,
but
I want to see this made in 3D. This would be a good thing to see fly around, I think.
Absolutely. We will, of course, be visiting with Rick again to talk about other concept designs that he's done. But, thank you very much, Rick.
Okay, yeah, terrific. Thanks for having me.
Cool. All right, so until next time, guys, Don't forget to click the like button, subscribe, all that jazz, all the typical stuff we ask you to do. And yeah, until then, I'm Captain Foley.
I'm Connor Kongs.
And I'm Rick.
And we'll see you guys in the future.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.